Okay, I think we're going to start for the sake of time. All right, so welcome everybody and good afternoon. Let me just start my recording here. All right, so welcome everyone, and my name is Ruth Martinez Lago. I'm sure most of you know me, and for those of you that don't know me, I'm the CEO of Lago Food Assurance Consultants. We're based here in Walvis Bay. And before we start, I would just like to share some key information regarding the session, and also like to let you know that this session is both on Zoom as well as streaming on YouTube. Okay, so for those watching on YouTube, thank you very much for joining us too. Right, so what the arrangement is that I'm going to present first the topic that I've prepared for you, and then after my presentation, you are more than welcome to ask questions. Right, so we've got the chat at the bottom of the, if you are in Zoom, it's right there at the bottom. You can pop your questions right in the chat. If you're on YouTube, you can just pop it in the comment section and hopefully we'll get to it. Right, so without further ado, I would like to start. First of all, I would like to just talk about my company a bit. Just for those who don't know about Lago Food Assurance Consultants. So we are a company that offers food safety and quality assurance interventions. And when I say interventions, it's in the form of training, first and second party auditing, as well as consultations. Okay, so this is a company that myself and my colleague Vera Yambo started back in 2017. And our main aim, our main goal is to make sure that we help you as a food business owner or anyone that works in a food business to produce safe food for consumers. Okay, so our interventions that we offer that I just spoke about can come in the form of training, and training can be instructor-led or in a self-paced format. So recently we just launched our IFAC Smart Center, which is a platform to sell online courses. So you can access all our courses on there, and you can actually continue to enroll on the courses and do them in a self-paced fashion. Okay, so now that I've given you a bit of background on our company, I would like to delve into the topic of the day. Right, so our topic today is how to keep your food safety team engaged during hazard assessment. So I'm sure most of you are part of a food safety team, or maybe have aspirations to join a food safety team. So hopefully this topic today will give you some information and some ideas on how to just improve your knowledge about food safety, as well as get your team to engage on food safety. Okay, so before we start, we're going to launch a poll on Zoom. We're going to launch a poll, and it's just a few questions, and I would like to get your insights on how you feel about this topic. Okay, so I've got my colleague Vera who's going to help me launch the poll. So Vera, if you can launch the first poll, please. So all you have to do is you read the question, and then you can pick the answer that you best resonate with. So the question is your food safety team interested in hazard assessment? So there's a yes, a no, or a maybe. Okay. Just wait a few seconds for everyone. Once we get all the votes in, then we'll be able to let you know what the results are. Sorry, for those on YouTube, unfortunately, this poll is only in Zoom, so we can't run it for you there. Yeah. Okay, do we have everyone in? We still got one more, waiting for one more. Is there someone that hasn't answered? Okay, so probably Vera, because yeah, but Vera is a host, a co-host. Okay, so the questions here, the answers here are interesting. So it says that 75% of people joining us today here say that their food safety team is very much interested in hazard assessment, while 25% say maybe. Okay, so this is quite interesting, and yes, it's good for those ones that said yes, because you're on the right track, and this talk today help you enhance your team even more. For those who are saying maybe, I think this will hopefully help your team turn around, the maybe to a yes. All right, so looking from the results, we know that most people really dread doing hazard assessments. Okay? So even though it's a yes, sharing the poll. Did they see this, the poll? Oh, sorry. Yeah, so that is the result of the poll. Have you seen? Can you see it?
Yes, we saw it.
Okay. All right. So you can see that really, in actual fact, in practice, a lot of people dread doing hazard assessments or even being involved in a food safety team. Okay, so from my experience, I have seen that most people are sort of, they're forced to be in the food safety team. It's a must that you are in there. If you're in a specific department, like for example, the quality department, by default, you're already in the food safety team. However, that should not deter you from loving to be part of the food safety team. So today I would like to share some tips on how to keep your team interested during the process of hazard assessment specifically. So I'm not going to talk about the food safety team functions in general. I would like to talk about hazard assessment specifically. Right, so I will start with telling you a story. And this is my story of how I started doing hazard assessments. And by the strangest thing after, because I really, really didn't like it, but for some reason, after the experience that I've had, I've grew to love it very much. Okay, so when I first started, Vera, can we move to the next slide, please? Okay, so when I first started in the food industry, and that is me, young me back 15 years ago in 2007, you can see no cheeks, it was just, yeah, me, young me. So when I started, I just came fresh from university, and all I knew about HACCP was taught to me from the comfort of a lecture hall. So when I joined the fishing industry, it was quite challenging for me to apply what I learned from university into the real world, the practical aspects of this course. Of this topic. So I spent a lot of time at school memorizing the 7 principles. Even during attending interviews, I would memorize the 7 principles, but in actual fact, I really did not know what those were. I didn't really understand these concepts before I started applying them. So as I joined the industry, I got my first job as a quality controller. And in the first 3 months of my job, my first manager tasked me to lead the HACCP team. Back it was called the HACCP team. And because I was the one fresh out of university and I appeared to be the right person to actually handle anything that's HACCP or anything that's food safety. And I was also given the responsibility to lead the team. Unfortunately for me, I never practiced or applied hazard assessment at school, as I told you before. So what was my go-to strategy? I went and Googled. And I'm sure most of you have done that. You go and Google the information and try to suck up as much information to appear like you know what you're talking about. And it was a complete disaster. So, yeah, I'm sure some of you are reminiscing about this also. But you see that conducting a hazard assessment is not a one-man job. It's not up to one person that should know all this information. It actually requires a collective of experienced minds in one room who will brainstorm and recollect the entire production process. So if you do it alone, then you're going to fail miserably. So you need the whole team to be involved. Okay. So what happened after my failed attempt? Well, what I did, uninformed and untrained me on anything HACCP or anything HACCP in a practical sense, I learned that the best way to know and understand is to really know the production process. So I had to be involved in the production process to understand how to apply the HACCP knowledge. So I immersed myself into production. So I would go to the production floor and see how these products are processed. Like, how do they really go? How do they flow? How is the process flow? And also get involved in the quality assurance activities. That is why I was employed after all. So I realized that it was easier to apply this HACCP knowledge in a practical sense after going through the production immersion process. So it helped me the most when I did a short course. And this only happened in my second job. Okay, so this is my journey that I'm trying to describe to you. So in my second job, I attended a lot of practical professional development courses, and they helped me a lot. So I understood better what I did in my first job while doing my second job. So it's quite sad, but that's how it is. It helped me grow. So the skills that I learned doing my second job, next slide. Yeah, so you can see there that the trend line as we go. So I started 2007, and then my second job, I became an inspector. So while learning, while learning as an inspector, there I was responsible for also verifying HACCP studies. So I understood better because of the knowledge that I had in my previous job, as well as from the training that I got. And the cherry on the cake was that when I got to my third job, that is when I really, really knew how to apply the HACCP principles. So that is where I designed my first hazard assessment. And I also got to lead a food safety team for about 5 years. And for me, that was actually good because the knowledge that I gained previously helped me form into this person that understood what hazard assessment is all about. Okay. So I know it took me a while, and I'm sure for most of you, it didn't take you as long as I did. But for those of you who are already involved in food production or food preparation, you have a complete advantage because knowing how production runs actually gives you an advantage to know how the principles are applied once you get the right training. Okay, and right now, from 2018 up to now, I'm consulting and I'm also helping clients to design hazard assessments, as well as helping to consult for some of the teams. Food safety teams, they invite me and I help them to do their hazard assessments. Okay, so that was my story. And I know you're not here to listen to my story, you're here to get those tips on how to get your team engaged. So here are my tips. So I've got a couple that are lined up for you, and I will start with the first one. So Ivera, you can move to the next slide. Okay, so the very first thing that you need to do is to select the right team. So remember at the beginning when I said that you need to know what you're doing, you need to know the production process. So same with the team, you need to make sure that you have the right team. Okay, so these teams must come from the right departments, okay? Representative departments. These departments can be from production, from maintenance, microbiology, engineering. If you don't have a maintenance only department, you can have an engineering department, quality assurance, procurement, logistics and warehouse, all these departments are necessary, okay? Because these people are the ones that are going to be involved in some of the decision making when it comes to hazard assessment. Okay. And one important thing about selecting the people is that they need to be in a supervisory or a managerial position. The reason why I'm saying this is because you don't want there to be a delay when it comes to decision making in hazard assessment or information corroboration. You want the people to know what they're talking about. So if you have a junior person only a junior person from a department in a food safety team, they will still have to go and find out from their supervisor or their manager, and that takes a lot of time. So ideally, we want supervisors or managers in this position. Okay? If it's a small business, it's understandable. You can have the few that you have. Okay, so the team members must also be willing to contribute and to participate in the HACCP activities. You do not want people that aren't interested in being on this team, or otherwise it will break the team morale. Okay, so you can do this by trying to mix it up a bit, have some, experienced people that are older. So you can do it in terms of gender, because the older people, they have done and tried several things already. And then you can also add in new young people, to just squash that. We've been doing this for the past 30 years and bring in a new perspective. You get those people that are like that. Normally the older people, they will be, no, we've been doing this, and new young people are coming in now and giving us new things. So yeah, so let's just try to mix it up a bit so that we can have perspectives from both experienced and fresh minds. Right? Communication is very important. So we want information to be free flowing within our team. So we don't want some team members to hoard all the information and some don't, because that breaks team morale. Okay, and then team members must have a sense of pride as well as belonging and involvement. They need to be involved in this team. Okay, so as a team, there should always be a leader. So I'm sure most of you have a team leader, and it's actually a requirement that the team must have a leader. So the role of the leader is to actually bring this team together. Okay, and the responsibilities of the team members must be explained to them right from the beginning. So when someone is onboarded as a team member, they need to be told what are their responsibilities. And at the same time, they must also be told of the consequences in case of a failure. Because one thing we forget is that food safety teams are there as representatives of the company, protecting the brand, protecting the integrity of the company when it comes to food safety. So it has to be made clear to the team that there can be consequences in case of this failure. So that needs to be explained to all the team members, and everyone must be aware. Okay, and then another good thing is you can assign specific roles, have people have different roles within the team. Don't just have the team leader that is doing everything. So assign specific roles, like let there be, of course, there's a team leader, let there be a scribe or a secretary, someone who's going to be taking notes during the meeting. Let there be someone that schedules the meetings, or let there be someone that edits the work after it has been done in the meeting, or after whatever work you have come up in the meeting. So assign specific roles to team members so that they can take that ownership. Okay, so one big no-no that I've experienced and thought, it's not the best, it's not the ideal thing to do, is to have a managing director or a CEO or a general manager, whatever you call them, to be part of your team. As admirable as that can be, maybe for small businesses, it works because there are fewer. But for a bigger organization, you'll find that this person with this title does not have the luxury of time to sit in your meetings, nor do hazard assessments with you. So better leave this to the operational people. Okay. Okay, so then the last thing is to train the team. So you've got a team, you've built the morale, and you've given them roles within the team. So the next thing to do is to train them. So you train them on HACCP application, specifically on how to do hazard assessment. Okay, and they must complete the course, because sometimes from our experience, we train a team and some of them do it and some don't. So try to train everyone together if it's possible. If not, then, you know, make sure that the whole team is trained and they must complete the course to understand the principles of HACCP application. Okay, and during your trainings, it's the right time to also request or to ask questions to the trainer, you know, things that you have problems with during the training. It's time for you to actually engage with the trainer and ask how we've got this certain problem regarding our hazard assessment, but we don't know how to deal with it. So the trainer, they are there to help you during that session. So let them explain to you or let them guide you on how to do it. Okay? And refresher training is very important. So training once off it's not the only thing that you can do. You need to also make sure that you train more often. And this is because firstly, people they forget very easily. Okay? And secondly, the regulations and the standards that govern food safety, as well as quality assurance and so on, they change. Customer requirements change. So you always need to have refresher training to keep up to date and to keep your team up to date. Okay. I think we're going to launch our second poll now after this. So Vera, can you do us the honor? Okay, so here's another question for you again. How many team members are in your team? I'll take a sip while you answer that. Okay, we still got some people answering. So there's a poll launched. How many team members are in your team? All right. I think we've got, yeah, everybody has answered. Okay, so we've got, we can share the poll. Okay, so 75% of you say that you've got 6 to 10 people in your team and 25, 1 to 5 people. Okay, so you can see there's a variety there. So probably the ones with more team members are bigger organizations that have got more departments. But yet again, we don't want to have too many people in the team that are just taking up the space. So for example, you have a quality department and almost everybody in the quality department is part of the HACCP team or the food safety team. Yeah. Right. So no one is wrong to have a big team, but just make sure that it's streamlined enough that it represents all the members, important members of your department that will have a say in the hazard assessment. Okay, because these people are the ones who are going to identify the different types of hazards. If it's biological, you'd want people with a microbiology background in there. If it's chemical, same if you've got a lab or even someone that works with chemicals in there. If it's physical hazards, you'd want maintenance or engineering in there because most of the hazards are associated with structural deficiencies, for example. Okay, moving on. Okay, sorry, that was supposed to be played before as I was explaining the Vera, yeah. But thank you anyways. Okay. So the third thing is you set your goals and provide an incentive. Okay. So what I mean by this is most of the time, you hear about teams. When people talk about teams, even if it's football teams or teams that are involved in bringing something up, there's usually goals that are set and incentives that are in place. But somehow for our food safety teams, we just treat them like they're just normal things, you know, that have to be done and get over with. But then if you think about it, if we start to treat food safety teams as actually high performing teams that need to be boosted or their morale boosted, that need to achieve a set of goals, if we start looking at it in that way, then our hazard assessments will not be as mundane as they are right now. So if we have high performing teams that set objectives or key performance indicators that are either measurable, specific, measurable, attainable, and time-bound, so-called SMART goals, then we might be able to do most of the work that food safety teams are supposed to do. Okay, so most often the food safety teams don't do this. But then one solution can be for meetings, the team leader can actually provide the objectives. Okay, so the team leader can provide objectives in advance for an upcoming meeting or a session that the team is about to have. And examples of these, if you, Vera, can you move to the next slide? Because I've got examples there. So these are just some of the examples that I've given regarding SMART objectives that you could set. Say, for example, in your next session where you're going to do a hazard assessment, your objective that you will set is that you will obtain a completed hazard assessment, which includes identification of hazards, the assessment of risk for a particular product or a product group. So don't be so ambitious and say we're going to do everything. So you're just going to focus on one group and you will have that at the end of the session. Okay, so that will be your one goal. Have a completed hazard assessment for that product at the end of session 1. Another one is to have a signed and verified flowchart by all your team members by a specific date. That is also an objective. So at least when you go to that meeting, you already have an objective and you know what you're going to do. And that will be the indicator that your meeting was successful. Another one is for audits, for example. You set an overall objective for that as a food safety team, you will obtain a pass or a specific score when the audit plan section is audited in the upcoming food safety audit. That could be an objective that you could set. Okay, so these are just examples. So you could set other types of objectives that you want just to get things done for your meeting. Okay, so these are the objectives that I'm talking about. We can go back to the previous slide. So while the team leader is setting the objectives, the rest of the team members can then suggest the activities to actually do those objectives or to get the objectives done. And an example would be to assign responsibilities or roles to team members, who's going to do what during that session, someone to set a suitable date for team members for the session, and who's going to be documenting. So set activities that will help those objectives come to reality. Okay, so with these SMART goals, you'll be able to measure individual contribution as well as your team performance. And with this, you're able to actually go back to your top management and get a buy-in regarding incentives, which I'm going to talk about now. Okay, so for incentives, you need your team to be interested. It's the previous slide. Still on the previous slide, the previous one. Okay, it's right at the bottom there. So incentives are something that can help your team to remain more interested and more focused and engaged. Okay, so I would like you to understand that incentives is not something that is compulsory, nor is it recommended by any standard or regulation. It's just merely a suggestion on how to help your team get engaged. Okay, so if we take into consideration high-performing teams' work, if team members are more motivated with incentives, they perform better. Okay, so I'm sure most of you are thinking incentive, money. No, most of the time it doesn't only involve money. Okay, so for most of us, if we are part of a team, since we are already employed by the company, money is most often off the table. However, there are other methods to reward the team. And these methods can be such as awarding prizes to the team members and recognizing their effort each year to make them feel that their contributions are valued by the leader and the organization. It can also be certificates of appreciation with a gift basket, just something to know that they're being recognized for the work they're doing. Can be a day off, announcements or pictures of the team which are displayed on company boards or company networks, distributed on the company networks, just to gain that recognition and respect, and many more other incentives that you can be creative about. Just think about something that you would need, that could obviously not be money, because money most of the time is off the table. Okay, so those are the type of incentives that you would get. Okay, then the fourth one, we go to the next slide. Next. Okay, so the fourth and very important is you need to have top management support and buy-in. So this is stressed by most food safety regulations and standards, even when you get audited by third-party auditors like regulatory bodies or certification bodies. That is what they look at when they come. They want to see what is the management's involvement in the food safety system. So it's important that management supports the food safety team. And they can do this by providing the necessary resources for the team to be able to perform the work, such as in hazard assessment. So one of these is training courses. They need to be able to pay for this training, avail resources, money for the team to attend practical courses that will help them conduct the hazard assessment correctly. They can also provide time, so give the team time, enough time to be able to do this. Space for sessions and meetings, because you'll be surprised, some teams will say, we really don't have a place to sit to do this, and we need a place where we can discuss, where we can all meet and discuss, but we rarely have the space for it. Okay, also any tools that are needed, and most importantly, that head person, the head honcho or the MD, the CEO of your company, they need to be 100% behind the team. They need to support you. And I'm now going to speak my experience about that. So the company that I worked for, where I led the food safety team, I had 100% of my MD's support. And as the team leader, could actually get a lot done because he supported our efforts, and he most of the time he would attend our review meetings and ask us questions, questions that we as a team never even thought about, and that is a type of support. So have your MD also question what you're doing, but not, of course, in a negative way, in a good way of how it's going to help the company. Okay. The fifth tip, so today I've got a lot of tips for you. The fifth tip is use a suitable method of assessment. Okay, so you will find that the hazard assessment that you are using is not user-friendly and no one understands. Maybe a consultant like Ruth or Vera came in and did it for you and nobody really understood what it meant, and your team now doesn't understand. So try to make this hazard assessment method, try to make it work for your company. Okay, so a lot of businesses, they use the Codex method, the method that's prescribed in Codex. Some they will use what's prescribed by, say, ISO 22000 or any other hazard assessment method that is friendly for their organization. So, but then maybe if you use Codex method, it's not really applicable to your type of operation. So try to choose one that you as a leader understand, you and your team members understand something that you were trained in and you can apply to your process, okay? Because it will totally deter your whole operation if your team does not understand that the method of assessment that they are using. So everyone must be on the same page. Okay? And be proactive. Be proactive when you're doing your hazard assessments. Don't wait until the last minute where you've got an audit and then that's when you're going to be now doing the hazard assessment on the last minute. No, try to be proactive and schedule in as your assessments as much as possible. Okay, moving on to the sixth tip. Oh, sorry, this is supposed to be 6. Okay, so the 6th tip is keep up to date and join industry forums and groups. So nowadays, you've got a plethora of food safety groups online, in LinkedIn, on different platforms. Sometimes there are even WhatsApp groups that are there. So I urge you for you and your team to join and participate, because on these groups, you will learn a lot. You will find ideas on how to improve your food safety system, as well as get information on topics on food safety, quality assurance, food defense, and so on. Okay. Sometimes you can use this platform to ask questions that you are struggling with, just the same as you did in the training, asking your trainer. It's also good to post your questions on these groups, and you'll be surprised by the answers that you get, and people will share their experiences. So try to open up and learn more from these groups. Watch free online webinars like you're doing right now. This is free, and I'm sharing information. So this is a learning experience for you and your team. Right, and then the last tip, the next slide, which is supposed to be 7, but it says 8, my bad. All right, so make meetings worthwhile and fun, okay? So don't make them as something that just needs to be done. Of course, there are some activities within hazard assessment that are really boring and yeah, you just get to do them. But try to make at least, the majority of the time that you as a team spend together, try to make it worthwhile. Okay, so make turns in chairing the meetings. The leader doesn't always have to be, of course, they are the leader, but they don't always have to chair the meetings. Take turns in chairing the meeting. Brainstorm on ideas, create an idea wall where you post all the information from your brainstorming session. Use colorful material. Color, okay, I wasn't a fan of color very much, but then having worked with Vera she loves color, especially the color purple. So she wants things to be done in different colors. So if you're going to identify hazards, have green for bacteria, red for metal, things like that, right? Metal or any physical hazards on red posters, on red flyers, or whatever you call them, sticky notes. Just try to make it as creative as possible so that you can make the session interactive and interesting. Okay. And then lastly, try to have some refreshments. I know sometimes the budget does not allow for it, but on sessions where you have to do an activity like a hazard assessment, try to have refreshments of coffee, tea, some snacks, just for the people to at least get something in their tummy and not feel miserable while doing the hazard assessment. Okay, so in the end, hazard assessment is very important for any food business, and if it's correctly done, if it's correctly done, it will work out correctly. If it's incorrectly done, then it will have serious problems for the business. Okay, so now that I've gone through the various ways, move to the next slide. I've gone through the various ways on getting the team engaged. I've summarized them there. So just so you know, we're going to share with you these slides so you can have them for information. We will email them to you together with a link for this recording for this session. Okay, then you can, if your team members were not able to join, you can also share it with them. Okay, so that is just a summary of all the points that we've discussed about. Select the right team, set the goals and provide incentives, train the team, set the goals and provide incentives, get top management buy-in. And next one. retrain your team, use suitable method for hazard assessment, keep up to date by joining forums and networks, make meetings and sessions fun. Okay? So those were our ideas on how to get your team more engaged. Okay, so I would like now to take it upon yourself. And move to the next one, Vera. Yeah. Okay, yeah, so I've just explained the summing it up that select the right team, retrain, and train them. So yeah, I'm not going to repeat that again. So we can just move right to the last slide. Okay, so since we've now spoken about how to get your team engaged, this is what I want you to take away from this session. I want you to think about how you will use this information as a team, you and your team, to help in achieving your company's food safety goals and objectives. So how are you going to use this information that we just shared in order to improve your team? Are you just going to file it somewhere, or are you going to actually use some of these tips, some of this advice to help to improve your company's food safety goals and objectives? Okay, so that is it. We've got, are there any questions? Nobody has a question? Come on, we're here for you today. We can, since we can unmute if you'd like to speak, you can unmute and ask your question, and we'll gladly answer or comment anything. We would appreciate your feedback on this. Okay, there's a comment from Lucia. Thank you, Ruth. This was really informative. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and the tips will be useful to apply. Okay, thank you, Lucia, for joining us and for taking that away. Any more questions? Chris, since I can see your face. Oh, I can see Lucia. Now I can see everyone's face. Sorry, everybody was. And I can see we've got someone from Swaziland, Nelly. Thank you very much for joining us. Welcome. Oh, all right. Christoph, are you able to? Okay, now I can hear you.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Good evening. It was wonderful experience which I get today. Thank you very much, because I learned something which I have to take to my company also. So keep it up. It's a very good presentation you did today. I wish you all the best. Do more in the future, because it's opening our mind also. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, another comment from Josiah. Thank you, Ruth, and your team for this great training. We learned a lot from this session. Thank you for joining, and we're really happy that we could share this. And I would like to also let you know that this is not the last of these sessions. We've got more coming. On the 14th of September, my colleague Vera Yambo is going to speak about how to set up a food safety culture in your organization. Okay, so just mark that date on your calendar. We will send out notices to also be on our social media pages as well. We'll send it to you by mail, through WhatsApp, any possible way just to get you to join again. Okay. And please bring questions, be interactive. If you got something that you would like to share, we want to make this as interactive as possible. I know it's the end of the day and everyone is really tired after a long day at work. So we're going to let you go now. Thank you very much for your time, and we wish you a good evening. It's a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you, Festus. Thank you, Nelly. All right. Bye. Oh, there's Vera. Sorry, she was she was co-pilot for a while. All right. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. Yeah.
All right. Okay, Chris.
Okay.
We're going to end the meeting now.
Okay, bye.
All right. See you next time.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, those on YouTube. No, it's good. There's Tresia. Bye, Tresia. And yeah, I'm going to end it now.